This podcast is supported by listeners like you. We're grateful for your tax-deductible donation at newthoughtphilly.org or the link in the episode description.
A practical prayer is a prayer that works.
These discussions between Reverend Bill Marcioni and Carol Lawrence dive into the details of how it works and how to work it.
Reverend Bill is a New Thought minister and the author of Practical Prayer for Real Results.
Your new life begins with a new thought.
Carol Lawrence is on a spiritual quest, finding the New Thought teaching after decades on the pulpit in 3 different traditional denominations.
I've got some questions.
Together, they're exploring the philosophy and activities that come together from many of the world's religions to create the practical spirituality that is New Thought.
Welcome to the Practical Prayer Podcast. I'm Carol, here with Reverend Dr. Bill Marcioni.
Looking forward to our conversation today. We're going to be talking about the sacred contract. So perhaps you would like to explain the sacred contract, what you mean, and where we're going to be starting from. And don't do it for my benefit. Do it for the benefit of everybody who's listening. Yeah, that's the ticket.
Well, okay, so when I was little, they talked a lot about past lives and have you been here before? And then there's, the reincarnation, which is a very interesting thought. But you know me, like I'm going to peel the what happened before that and before that. And so I had my idea about what it was like before you come into this human space, because we're spiritual beings, right? Having a human experience. So I thought, well, what was it about? Like, what was the transition about? And I don't know if we've had this discussion before, but I've talked about the little conversation that God and I had before I came, because I don't have a lot of warm fuzzies and I showed up late. And so there were only a couple left. And so I thought, well, there may have more in that conversation than just my warm fuzzies. And so I was reading and bingo, I come up upon this whole idea of the sacred contract. And it got my attention. So the idea is that we made an agreement with God, divine, whatever you want to call God, we made an agreement concerning what we want to accomplish in this life. So it could be something that we want to, we need more patience, we need more whatever. And there would be a whole lot of experiences that would, result in me having that experience and would result in the thing that I said I wanted, the higher self and all of that. Or maybe I didn't know exactly what the experiences would be, but from what I'm saying, you understand that there was a conversation and an agreement, because that's what a contract is, an agreement,
right,
that you come on this side and you will do this. So that opens up a whole lot of questions and discussions and all of that, which are just amazing. So there it is.
Okay. And to which, like a sentence or two in, Bill thought, oh, that's sacred contract, because I know exactly what you're talking about. And true to form, instead of talking about the sacred contract, I'm going to talk about whether there actually is one. Because yes, you are having the individual human experience that you are having now, and you have become completely aware that you came in with less in the way of warm fuzzies than some other people did, and also with some skills and abilities and talents and perspectives that you found through the course of your life were pretty rare. And the specific combination, not really anyone who's duplicated that. There's some people who can do individual things that you do well, that they can also do well, but there's very few people who do all of them. Would you say that that's correct?
That's pretty good. Yeah.
Okay. So the idea of a sacred contract, if in fact our purpose in life is to go through a process so that our individual soul can learn lessons and up level and get into the next life with a higher degree of whatever it is that we're eventually heading toward, then the notion of a sacred contract is very important, because that's the lesson plan.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's the curriculum. Here's what I'm going to get accomplished while I'm here this time around. And if we're doing sacred contracts prenatally, the word for before we're born, then there's going to be some sort of a post-visit debrief where we determine amongst ourselves, either somebody outside judging us or ourselves in review, how'd that go? Did I learn what I set out to learn? Did I accomplish it? Do I need to go back and learn it again? As we go through and then revise the lesson plan. And, you know, tongue in cheek, I know some people who are going to get held back. I'm going to have to repeat the lesson because I don't know what they were here for, but it hasn't led to anything good.
No, you didn't say that. All right.
And there's another way of looking at it, which is that the infinite knows everything. The infinite is everything. The infinite is sharing itself as everything. And we are individualized expressions of the infinite having, as you say, a human experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. And perhaps the entire reason for having the human experience is to have it. Because I mentioned this before, God would be the most boring companion at a cocktail party. God, have you ever heard the one about yes? God, did you ever wonder about no? God, is it possible? Yes. You know, because there's no surprises there. Mm-hmm. There's no mystery, and there's no slow reveal. It's like everything is right there on the table. And because of the way that our senses are set up and the way that our lives are unfolding, is we are very much limited to the time and the space and the perspective that we have as we're going through life. You know, I can stand up here and I can walk outside and look back at this same place, and it looks really different from the street in front of my house than it does from right here. And it's still the same place. And with that omniscience, the awareness of everything, the omnipresence, being present everywhere at every point, there's no perspective. Everything is there. Everything is done. There's like a fabric or a matrix or a mesh, and everything is fitting together. That regardless of how you look at it, it's the same thing. So we are ways that the infinite can look differently upon space and time and experience. If that's what's going on, then whatever happens here is okay. We're not here to learn a lesson. We're here to have an experience. In which case, this is much less about school and much more about an amusement park. You know, as undifferentiated souls, we decide, I'm going to go on the Carol ride. And I'm going to see what it's like to get most of the way through life and give up my control freak card. Or I'm going to go on the Bill ride, and I'm going to start by wanting to be a TV director, and then go into the radio biz, and then going into the technology biz and marketing and advertising, and eventually wind up in ministry. And that's the ride. And who would plan that?
Go ahead.
So perhaps that's the whole thing. It's like, you know, deciding that we're going to go on the roller coaster or the tilt-a-whirl, or the lazy river raft, and we're just going to get on the ride, and we're going to have a lifetime of that ride, and then we're going to get done with it, and then we're going to go and say, well, that was fun. I wonder if I want to go again, and if I want to get on the same ride again. The roller coaster was too scary. The river ride was too boring. This thing was, you know, not to my liking. Or I just want something different. I'm going to go eat, do the spiritual equivalent of eating funnel cake. I don't know.
Yeah. You could look at it so many different ways. For two ways, for example, another way is when I have experienced very difficult times in my life, and I know that I believe that this is a part of the blueprint, supposedly. In my mind, it is. I'm saying I agree to this contract. So, in other words, it's a handshake agreement. This is something that I can do. So, I kind of feel that way when I'm in a difficult spot. I signed on, I said I can do this, I will do this. Period. Now, you can say no, but it's probably going to come back again, and I don't think about that. Then the other part about it, other way, when I was raising my kids, they would do dumb stuff like what kids do, and sometimes they would get really ticked with me, and I said, "Look, we agreed to take this journey together. There is not another woman on the planet that would go through this and tolerate your blah blah blah. So
Nonsense.
This is it. You got it? And I think I had impressed that on them so deeply without really intending. I'm just telling them what I believe, that they really spew that out. Like, there's no mom that would have went through this blah blah blah. And I said, that's right. Keep that in mind.
Yeah, that works.
Yeah.
That works. The way that I, in my perspective, is, because people say, "What's my purpose in life?" And we've talked about this. What does God want me to do? God wants you to be you. So God does not want you to do something that God decided you needed to do. You were born here with a certain perspective, and the physicality that each of us has, and the gifts and the talents and the skills and the opportunities and the limitations that are built into wherever it is that we come into life. And our entire purpose, perhaps, is just to live that life and see what we do with the gifts. There are some gifts that I've had since I was really young that I didn't find out about until I was in my 30s. I mean, one of the big gifts that my wife gave me, she said, "You're one of the most spiritual people I've ever met." And it's like, who are you talking to? When we first met, because I didn't know what she was talking about. I didn't have a reference for that. I was not brought up to be spiritual. She noticed it in me, and then I got a chance to pursue it. And yeah, I kind of am. So it was a way that 30 years in, or 35 years in, I got to discover another gift that I didn't know I had, and then work with that. Now I'm doing spiritual stuff. That's what my time is all devoted to. And it turns out some of the things that I did previously are helpful in moving that forward.
Exactly.
Unique combination of gifts and skills and talents. I was always, growing up, very creative and also very technical. And it took forever to find out that that's a really rare combination. Some people are in one category or the other, and there are very few of us who are in both. Okay, well, I didn't think that it was anything special, so I didn't notice that some of my friends did one and some of my friends did the other, and very few did both. All right. Another slow reveal.
Well, you can, the thing about this subject, probably all of them, you can make a case either way. You are who you are when you came here, the revelation to yourself of the different skills that you have that you could marry together. All of that was a part of who you agreed to be. Now, the other side of that is the predestination, which is, I don't like that because it denies free will and brings in a whole host of other things, which makes me think of why even bother if you're just a pawn in this game. Like in the book of Job, you can't read that without wondering if you're just a pawn in this game. And I think it's more to it than that. So in order for it to balance in my mind, it just feels absolutely clear that we had a sacred contract. That and the also, and I think I probably need that to support the idea of spirit always being there and co-creating and all of that. It just makes all that make sense to me.
Okay. Okay. And I think that they're both the same story. And if one makes you feel more comfortable than another, then rock with that one. There's there's two different ways to go shopping for clothes. One is to go to all of the stores and buy something in all of the stores and then return things to all of the stores until you finally find one. And the other is just go to one store, buy the thing and keep it. And in one sense, the second one is if this were God ordained, you just have to go to one store, buy the thing, and be done with it. Mm-hmm. But there is a process. There is an unfolding. There is new knowledge that's gleaned every time we get something, we bring it home, and it's like, this isn't quite exactly right. Mm-hmm. There's new knowledge and new experience that's getting added onto that. So that gets combined with the original desire so that the next time we go out, we are in a position where we can get even closer to the target that we're looking for. I'm not going to say that either one of those is bad. I'm also not going to say that one of them is God ordained and the other one is just a mistake. But your case in point for you, 35 years, 3 different denominations on the pulpit, and now you're doing New Thought. Mm-hmm. If there were a sacred contract, a sacred covenant, would you not have gone directly into what you're doing now?
Absolutely.
And cut out those intermediate steps?
No, absolutely not. That's not how the sacred contract works.
Because you have to go through the process.
Yes.
That's the sacred contract.
That's what I
Sometimes it's a fabulous, happy experience. And sometimes you go, why do I have to do this?
Yes, of course. Of course. Let me tell you. I mean, keep going, but just let me say that 30-some years was no joyride. There were, okay, it was plenty of moments I said, we got to do this. You couldn't find a better way to do this? Where I'm going, they don't have these kind of people. But, you know.
Lessons, the things that we learn. Mm-hmm. And you know, sometimes it's not easy to learn something because we have to let go of something that seemed so easy and so straightforward and so obvious. And then it turns out, well, maybe that's not the case. Then there's this huge mental, gnashing of gears mm-hmm. as we have to get into a new understanding and a new alignment. And I think that regardless of whether you think that this was something that you agreed to before you started, or it's the combination of gifts and skills that are slowly coming into understanding, I think it's a different way of looking at exactly the same process. It is a partnership between us as individualizations and the divine as the infinite creative power. We're part of it. And in some way, we are taking our steps and being guided to what's happening. And I doubt we're going to figure it out.
Probably not. You know, there's probably, I spent some time going through the debate of predestination versus the sacred contract. And it's I'm honest enough to say that I'm so biased that I really probably could not be objective in the discussion. Because, there's a scripture in Isaiah that says, produce your cause and present strong reason. Now, I can do that mm-hmm. for what I believe. And reincarnation is not, predestination is not something I want to believe. Now, I'll be honest. It's not something, so it doesn't get my objective. And as much as I try, but I could build my case for the sacred and present strong reason. And the opposing side will just give up. No, go ahead. Yeah, you're right though. It is. It's
all right.
Yeah.
Here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna take a quick break, and then we are going to do a mental exercise about predestination. I'm not going to say anything more about it.
I don't believe in it. But okay,
Well,
we're going to do your
that's where we're starting.
I know.
That's where we're going to start.
All right.
Okay. On your mark, get set, break.
Learn to put practical prayer to work in your life. The steps are simple to learn and let you begin to get real results to create the life of your dreams immediately. Reverend Bill Marcione's widely acclaimed book, Practical Prayer for Real Results, gives you a clear summary of the New Thought principles behind practical prayer and the series of easy-to-understand steps found in the most effective prayers from religions and spiritual practices all over the world and throughout history. Practical prayer is not a replacement for your religion or practice. It's a technique to make the work you do in consciousness even more effective. The book includes 40 prayers on various topics that you can adapt as needed and use as your own. Practical Prayer for Real Results is available in paperback, Kindle, and audiobook on Amazon or at b-the-light.com. That's b-the-light.com.
Welcome back to the Practical Prayer Podcast. I'm Carol, here with Reverend Dr. Bill Marcione.
Having a wonderful conversation about predestination or the sacred contract or something in between. And I told you that I would pick this up with a mental exercise. And the mental exercise is predestination, what's the point? And the reason is that we all of us agree that there's this God power, this infinite presence, this divine source that is the creator of everything. And that divine power and presence being all-knowing, all-seeing, all-present, omniscient, omniactive, all the rest of it. It is everything. It is everywhere. It is every point. We are individualizations of it. And so if we look at it from the perspective of we are going through the experience that we have in life as individualizations of the infinite, so that we can have the experience, the individual experience that we're having, and come back to our awareness of our connection with the one. If the entire program were plotted out in advance by that same infinite creative power that creates everything, and we're just little automatons going through the motions, what's the point? Mm-hmm. It's not like God's going to be surprised or impressed or get anything from the outcome. If it's all predestination, it's like, this is all finished. I've seen this movie before. I've been this movie before. If, on the other hand, we are to have a sacred contract, and I'm not sure that it's an agreement. I think it's when we, get into this life, we have those skills and abilities and talents and perspectives and, where we are and the family that we're born into and the socioeconomic status and the country that we're born into, that we can either brag about or complain about, but that's where we are. I think wherever you choose to have the starting point, we are on a path of self-understanding and sharing. We get to understand who we are, share our gifts, and do so in a way that brings uplift to us. Now, for some people, that's finding out that they have something marketable that they can sell and make some money and make lots of money and then measure their life by the money that they make. And for other people, it's about bringing more harmony and good and love into the world, in which case it's not about the money. It's about the way that other people's lives are transformed. But it's the same process. So does God say the person that's making money is bad and the person that's running a charity is good, or vice versa? It's possible for it to show up either way. So really, God doesn't care. So why would God fix the race so that you have to do something particular? Mm-hmm. I just don't understand it. And if you want to, you can play devil's advocate because you've heard the answers of why predestination is a thing.
Well, predestination, when you really think about it, what is the whole point of it? It's about saying God is the powerful one. God has to win. God is the winner. We already know that.
Yeah.
We're not debating that. And if you and I were talking, we would never get to a place of trying to prove, me trying to prove God is greater and whatever. God is. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
That than which nothing greater can be conceived. That's God. So
Yep.
that being said, everything else is second to that, so to speak. So I can enjoy the idea of being in the co-creative process. I can enjoy the idea of the sacred contract because it does, if I'm in agreement with God, it doesn't diminish the power and the greatness of God whatsoever. On the other
Yeah.
side of the street, it has to be uh, predestination because that proves that God is in charge. I don't need that,
Right.
So that's where it breaks down for me and
Yeah.
makes me more free to choose a lot of other things because that doesn't adjust God's power in any way. It doesn't move the needle with God at all. But I think that's the whole purpose of a lot of interpretations on the other side is always defending God, so to speak.
Yeah. And there's probably something in there about it becomes much easier to assign or blame things on God when it's predestination because God wanted me to have it or God didn't want me to have it. So
Hmm.
it doesn't make any difference what small me down here wants. I could give you a really fun exercise in against predestination. Go ahead, and everybody who's listening or watching now, go ahead and do the same thing. Take a deep, full breath in and hold it. While you're doing that, notice that that breath contained everything that's required for this next experience of life. You didn't have to arrange for it. Nobody planned for when you're going to take that deep breath in, and you get to decide when you're going to let that breath out. And whenever you want to, go ahead. And if you want to keep holding your breath, go ahead. And then figure out for yourself, was that God deciding through you when it was time for you to let your breath out? Or was that you deciding and you have free will? Or because you were breathing out at the time that seemed like you were going to breathe out by your own choice, what's the difference?
Okay. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
all of it. You can look at anything and say, oh well, that's God wanted me to go out with that girl, or God wanted me to rob that convenience store. And it's just predestination. I can't help myself. It's nonsense.
It's just it's a scapegoat thing. So
Right.
so that argument is done. I mean,
Yeah.
it
So the sacred contract, and is it possible that there is, that there's a progression of lives and incarnations, and we're going around building up our dharma so that we eventually reach enlightenment? Maybe. I don't know. It's above my pay grade.
mine too. It's
I'm here currently running a single lap of human life, and I'm not really aware of what the course looks like beyond where I am right now, or what the meaning is behind the race when I only get to run this single lap. There could be something much bigger going on that's beyond my awareness. There could be influences about when I'm in the race and what team I'm running for, or any of the other details that I'm not aware of at this point. And I think that kind of dovetails back into it's none of our business.
well, I agree up to the point where you said none of our business. Because I think it is helpful whether you choose whatever you want, but I think it's helpful because the way I look at it, all of us have a sacred contract. So in our contracts, in our journey, we're going to meet at certain intersections and we can do whatever. You and I met that one morning and
Yep.
that was an intersection that I didn't see. I could choose to have followed up on it or not. If I
Mm-hmm.
did not choose to follow up on it, I don't know how I would have gotten to where I am now. But at that point, I didn't see the rest of the way. I had a choice. It's like
Yeah.
it's like I know where I'm going. I always have. I always have. So
Hmm.
when I get to certain intersections, I kind of say, is this all right? I'll try this.
And it is completely possible that this infinitely creative universe had tried putting us together once or twice or a dozen times before, and for whatever reason, it didn't work because we're bullheadedly looking in the wrong direction. When we were both on the same beach
Hmm.
in Atlantic City, walking down the pier, we didn't happen to run into each other. I mean, we don't know how many times this same matchup was attempted.
Hmm.
We don't know how many times it would have been brought about if you hadn't responded to the Facebook ad, or if I hadn't published the Facebook ad, which is out of character for both of us. Something else could easily have happened, and I don't know what it is because it's none of my business. But I know that if the plan is for you and me to meet, we're going to meet, and resisting it is futile.
But there, okay, there, excuse me. There's a lot of other things going into play. Um, like I use the term spiritual intelligence or your spiritual readiness to be able to handle this meeting,
Hmm.
and I think that has something to do with it as well, because I could have met you at another point in my life and not made that call,
Hmm.
and say, no, I'm not doing that. But then you get to a place, I think it's maturity. That's all, because you can't define maturity. You can't say, well,
Hmm.
this is it. I'm at a place where I have enough experience to say, wait a minute, think more deeply about things and beyond the whatever that you might have thought before, and do this, because this is, and if it doesn't work, like after a few rotations around the sun, well, listen, if it doesn't work, I'll try something else. It's at the end of the world. If it didn't work, I don't
Yep.
do that again, and just keep going.
Yeah, and I'm not sure how many times the infinite might have tried to put us together. I know that we were both living in Philadelphia in the 80s. I know that we were both working with or for Digital Equipment Corporation sometime thereafter. And it didn't happen during either of those interludes, where it might have been completely possible. Then again, I was at that point an agnostic and you were at that point a pastor. So neither of us would have had any interest in each other. So, who knows? It's about timing and grace and some infinite creative power that is way, way more on the ball than any of us are.
Hmm.
So, I don't think we're going to answer this question, but I think we are going to take another break, and then we're going to do a prayer about being the gift. It's Reverend Bill letting you know that the Practical Prayer for Real Results class is now available on demand. That's right, you can take it at your own pace, anytime you want. All of the information is at bethelight.com. That's b-the-light.com. You know where to find that stuff. The class is 5 lessons, broken down into 18 modules, and you can take them at whatever pace is comfortable for you. As you work through the process, it starts out with the theory, goes into the practice, there are experiential activities and exercises, and at the end of the program, you will wind up with an understanding of how practical prayer works, and a practical prayer for yourself that will work to create transformation in your life. And as you know, it works for everything. Take a look at the class online at bethelight.com. There's a sample lesson so you can see how the class is going to work for you, and then dive in. The great news is it's on sale now. You can register and save $20 off of the regular price. I'm looking forward to seeing you in class.
Welcome back to the Practical Prayer Podcast. I'm Carol, here with Reverend Dr. Bill Marcioni.
We've been having a wonderful conversation about the sacred contract, the sacred covenant about what our purpose is and the agreements that we have coming into this life about that which we are to learn, that which we are to share, that which we are to accomplish. And that's one way of looking at it. I'm completely okay with looking at it that way. The other possibility is that we are born into this life with a certain set of gifts and talents and skills and abilities, and then our opportunity, talent, challenge, task, potential is to understand what those gifts are, how they can be used, and then to use them. And those are, as far as I'm concerned, those are pretty close together, different ways of kind of describing a similar thing. And it's the opposite of predestination, which is where everything has been nailed down and we are just following along in lockstep and we don't actually have any free choice, which is disheartening for me. It's like, that's it. That's all there is. I don't think that that's the case. But in any case, since this is the Practical Prayer Podcast, we're going to do a prayer. And the prayer is about the sacred contract. And as you go through life, as we go through life, we get a different understanding of what the sacred contract is. So in Carol's case, she knew that there was an agreement that she had with the infinite, and she was here to accomplish something, and that as she went through the experience, that she was in partnership with the infinite doing it. And, am I getting that correct?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And we don't necessarily know all the answers every step along the way. There is new understanding, new perspective being revealed all the time. The who I am is different today than the who I am 20, 25 years ago. And that's not because 25 years ago I wasn't good enough. That's because 25 years ago I was younger and less experienced. And as we go through the experience of life, we become more aware either of the gifts and talents and skills that we have or of the details of that sacred contract that we are engaged in. So for the prayer today, we get to turn away from the specifics and the life that we're leading and the activities that we're involved in, and open up to the bigger picture, open up to the awareness of that sacred contract, open up to the awareness of our connection with that infinite creative power, and know that that creative power has created something unique as us, and that we are here to find it and do it and share it and be it. And the essential reminder is that there's one power and presence, one love, one creative force, one mind, one intelligence, one. In the beginning of time, there was only the one, and the one set about creating, whether it was the Big Bang or God saying, let there be light. All of the creation, everything that exists everywhere, began with the one sharing itself as its creation. And everything that exists has come from that. We are that one initial creative act, continuing to unfold, continuing to create, continuing to evolve. Each of us is an individualization of the one. So as we are born into this life, as we progress and grow and learn, we are the unfoldment of the one in a unique and specific way that is us. And all of the intelligence, all of the goodness, all of the energy, all of the intelligence that exists anywhere in the universe is available everywhere in the universe and is available to us now. So we are expressions of the infinite. And as we execute upon the sacred contract or discover more fully and richly and deeply the gift that we are and the ways that we can engage in the world to bring that goodness that's the truth of us into being, we get to be the gift. We get to be the channel through which God's infinite goodness is flowing, and it's unique and different for each of us. We are guided to take each next perfect step. It's the same story whether we're talking about a sacred contract where we decided what the goal was ahead of time, or that unique combination of gifts and skills and talents where we get to figure it out and find it out along the way. It is the slow reveal, more and more and more fully, that infinite power and presence revealing itself as us. That's what's happening. That is what's happening. And the good continues to unfold for each of us in our own way. And so I'm grateful. I'm grateful for the love that's unfolding. I'm grateful for the willingness of each one to consider that divinity within and to be guided into those next perfect steps and to know that love is unfolding. I'm so grateful for all of this goodness. And I'm grateful to be able to speak this word and release it into the creative law that's been creating since the beginning of time. The same one that responded to let there be light is responding to this now. And the awareness of the gift that we are comes even more fully into our awareness. The guidance is made clear, the steps are taken, and love is unfolding. And so it is.
The Practical Prayer Podcast with Reverend Bill Marcioni and Carol Lawrence is a production of BeTheLight.com.
be-the-light.com,
where you can find more information about practical prayer for real results.
Our theme is by Music of Wisdom. You can learn about the spiritual community of New Thought Philadelphia with daily guided meditations,
Weekly celebrations of spirit,
and Reverend Bill's classes in practical spirituality
at newthoughtphilly.org.
This podcast is supported by listeners like you. We're grateful for your tax-deductible donation at newthoughtphilly.org or the link in the episode description.